After a tough week 2 loss for both teams, both the Ravens and the Cowboys are looking to turn things around. Let's preview the matchup. Let's talk Ravens with Yolanda. Today's video, we are going to discuss each player that makes up the offensive line. Good evening, Ravens flock. Welcome into the channel. I hope everyone is doing well. Let me know. I think my audio is okay. I wanted to make sure that everyone can hear me. Good. It looks like I'm good. Give me a thumbs up in the chat if you can hear me well. But I want to go ahead and get started with tonight's show. I see Sean Coles has already joined, and Rave Kingdom. Both thank you all so much for being here. The Baltimore Ravens desperately need this win because we don't want to start the season 0-3. That's something the Ravens have not done since 2015, I believe. So 9 years, and we do not want to see that happen. Okay, I see the audio is good. Great. I also see you, Tim Hughes. Thanks for joining tonight. We do not want to start the season off 0-3. Tonight, we're going to discuss ways that the Ravens can get it done to turn this ship around and get it on the right course. That's what we need to do as a team. And I'm here for it because we need to stay the course. We have had a very rough and bumpy start these last couple of weeks, but I have some ideas. I'm sure you'll share yours with me. I hope you do, how the Ravens can come out with this win. We headed out to Texas, and Lamar has only lost to one NFC team, and that's the Giants. We're not going to tarnish his record with another loss to an NFC team. We just can't do that. I see you. Agnes is in the house. Alicia Thomas. Thank you both. Thank you all so much for joining. I want to start by going through some of the quarterback stats. And I always like to start with looking at our quarterback first, just to kind of see if Lamar Jackson is kind of on par or on pace or similar to the quarterback that we're going to face. And this week it happens to be Dak Prescott. So let's start by having a look at Lamar Jackson's stats after 2 games. Okay, here we go. All right, so we'll start with there we go. Now we're on the right screen. So we'll start with looking at Lamar Jackson, his passing yards, 520 here. And that's really good. Very happy to see that. His rushing yards, this is what bothers me, 167 yards. We're going to talk about how we can get this remedied so that Lamar Jackson is not our leading rusher. I don't want to see my quarterback out there scrambling, running for his life, gaining rushing yards just because other members of the offense are not pulling their weight. And I'll say that to keep it mild, to keep it nice. But we also have, in terms of touchdowns, he has 2 touchdowns and 1 interception. Shout out to Rashad Bateman for dropping that pass to him, which resulted in an interception to our quarterback. I don't believe that interception was on Lamar Jackson, but hey, he's the QB. He threw it. It's going to be on his watch. Now, keep these stats in mind, 520 passing yards. Let's have a look at Dak Prescott. So after 2 games, Dak Prescott has 472 yards passing, and they say that Lamar Jackson is not a good passer, but I move on and, can't keep up with other quarterbacks in terms of passing yards. I move on. He has, in terms of his touchdowns, he has 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, and he's been sacked 6 times. I didn't indicate it earlier, but Lamar has 3 sacks. So that is what I'm wanting to really dive into. How can, number 1, we protect Lamar Jackson? And then number 2, how do we get him not to be the leading rusher of our team? Starting on offense, Ravens, keep the playmakers who are making plays on the field. Does that sound really simple to you? Because it's very simple to me. It's not rocket science. We signed Derrick Henry, And I'll share the screen and show you his stats as well. But we signed Derrick Henry, who is supposed to be that bruiser of a running back. We're supposed to get optimal results from him, especially in third and short situations. He need not be on the bench. We need to make sure that our playmakers are on the field. And let's quickly take a look at Derrick Henry's stats in terms of where he is for his carries and how many rushing yards he has after 2 games. So Derrick Henry here has 130 rushing yards, and he's averaging 4.2 yards a carry. Rushing attempts, 31, and he's got 2 rushing touchdowns. This is where I'd like to see us improve and make a huge leap in terms of utilizing Derrick Henry. The catch-22, the caveat there is we're going to need an O-line to block for Lamar, obviously, but more in terms of our rushing attempts, we're going to need that O-line to create lanes for the running backs to run. It doesn't matter how many carries Derrick Henry is going to have if he has nowhere to go. So we saw him turn up the heat, to flick the switch on in the second half of the last game against the Raiders. We just need to see more of that. The formula for us to be successful is to figure out what situations is best for Derrick Henry. Is it running between the tackles? Well, clearly not, because that's just not working. There's no lane for him. Or running him out to the boundaries, out to the side. That's what I think we need to do. We need to get him in a position to where, given this state of this O-line, we figure out what works for Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. And one thing I read earlier today, Todd Monken said that we're getting close. Our offensive line, we're getting there. We're close. I don't really know what that means, because from the Raiders game, we were not close at all. And if by some strange miracle we have really improved in a week's time or 5 days' time, then great. Maybe that means we will not see Daniel Falele this weekend. But going back to Harbaugh's comments earlier this week, where he really doubled down on Daniel Falele being the starter, him earning the role over Ben Cleveland, I doubt that. But that's point number 2. We keep our best players on the field at all time. And I cannot be convinced at this time that Ben Cleveland is not the better fit in terms of that right guard position. You cannot convince me that although he is a rookie, you cannot convince me that that left tackle is not better than McCary. I've seen enough. Put McCary and Ben Cleveland on the bench. Rosengarten and Ben Cleveland, not Ben Cleveland, put Daniel Falele and Patrick McCary on the bench, and then make sure for your right guard, you have Ben Cleveland, and for your right tackle, you have Roger Rosengarten. That's the formula, I think. Roger Rosengarten did a fine job defending last week against Max Crosby. When we took him out of the game and we rotated the right tackle, McCary didn't look so good. He didn't hold his own. So I'm sorry, you can't convince me right now that McCary is a better option. You can't convince me right now that Daniel Falele is a better option. So that's point number 2. Another thing that we can do is take a page out of the Saints book and get our running backs involved early and often. We saw, or if you've read up or heard about how that game went, it was a blowout. 44-19, I believe, was the score. And the Cowboys defense struggled all game, almost MIA. So we need to figure if the Saints were able to get the job done against their struggling defense and they ran the ball and they were effective at it. Hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, Ravens. That's what we're going to need to do to win this game. If and we'll talk about the defense in just a moment, but if their secondary struggles against the pass, use that. Make sure we keep our playmaker Zay on the field. He was disgruntled this week. And, I can imagine that after a loss, and not only one, two in a row, you're not very pleased. You're not very happy. I understand. But keep him on the field. Utilize Isaiah Likely. Todd Monken need not, going into the third game, struggle with knowing how to effectively use both of our tight ends on the field at one time. Keep Mark Andrews out there. Get Mark Andrews involved. And if Mark Andrews is still not 100% healthy, which none of us really know, if he's not fully healthy, you know that you can rely on Isaiah Likely. He's shown you, he's demonstrated that he can do it. He can get the job done. And in my personal opinion, he's just more athletic than Mark Andrews. I think both of them serve a good purpose. But I think if you're talking about the athleticism, to me, it's there with Likely more so than it is with Mark Andrews. But we need all the help we can get to get this win on Sunday. And by the way, just FYI, I remember the game is at 4:25 in the afternoon. I saw that and I was like, oh man, I prefer the 1:00 games because I wanted to watch my team play. I don't want to just sit there on Sunday worrying, okay, are we going to win? But 4:00, we're an afternoon game. But another thing that we need to do that I think is always a benefit for the Ravens, we need to control the clock. Run that clock out. Ground and pound with Derrick Henry, Justice Hill. If the defense, Lamar has to take what the defense gives him. And if it means short, intermediate passes, screen passes, if it means that, that's what we need to do to run the clock out. We need to, the time of possession for the Ravens needs to be so much greater than that of the Dallas Cowboys. That's what I think we absolutely need to do. That's a strategy that I think is going to help us managing the clock. Now, that's not to say that, John Harbaugh is a good manager of the clock and knowing. I'm done talking about Harbaugh for right now. Let's see what happens this upcoming game. See if there are any changes with him, challenges, wasting timeouts. Who knows? I don't think there will be a change, but I'm just not optimistic there. But I'll table my thoughts about Harbaugh until after the game. But we need to manage the clock as best we can and not give them a lot of opportunities to score. Because what we don't want to do, we don't want to give Dak that ball and CeeDee Lamb turn up on us. We don't want to give them an opportunity to start passing this ball with ease because we already know our secondary, what I thought was going to be outstanding, stellar, has really looked very, I'm going to call it shaky. I'm going to be really nice. It's looked shaky. And because we know that, we need to force them to run the ball. But more on that later. If it is a 3rd and short on 3rd downs, please make sure if it's a 3rd and short, 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, an obvious run situation, we need to make sure that Derrick Henry is there. There's no excuse why he's not on the field in that type of situation. When we get to the red zone, because our ability to punch in the points in the red zone has not been there. It's not been great. Hence the reason we're kind of like 0-2. When we have those end zone plays and when we are right there at the goal line, that's what we used Gus for. I was about to call him JK, but that's what we used Gus for last year. Why aren't we doing the same thing consistently with now Derrick Henry? Those are things that I think we need to clean up on offense. And we've got to find a way to make sure that all of our wide receivers, well, I can't say all of them, but our wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, and perhaps even wide receiver 3, depending on how much we play Nelson Aguilar, they've got to be able to catch the ball. We know Zay can, and this is not really necessarily for him per se, but Bateman, I need to see more effort from him this time. In this game, I want to see him actually have an impact, make a difference. That's what I'm waiting for. And once we get there, if we get there, let me say it that way, if we get there, I think we can turn the tide of where we've really been struggling. Yes, all of that is to say, everything that I've just mentioned here is contingent upon the O-line. They are a huge factor. You start with them. If the pocket is collapsing, if Lamar doesn't have time, if there's not a lane for the running back, all of this goes back to us making sure that our offensive line is functional this week. We can't afford it. But I have a question for you. What do we do? And leave it in the chat. What do we do if our O-line still looks raggedy? I'm going to call it raggedy. How about that? Is that okay? What do we do? If we go out there on Sunday hoping for the best, hoping for different players on the right side, but we don't see it. We see Daniel Falele out there. We see Pat McCary. What do we do? Because at that point, the game is really up in the air. So I'll let you weigh in on that, and I'll share my thoughts there. But I'd like to see Zay have a few more targets than he had last game. That I think would be important. So, that's kind of like, I don't know that there's another way to say it, but if we have a wide receiver number one, he's got to be just that. There's no question if CeeDee Lamb is their number one wide receiver. So we've got to make a statement as well with our number one wide receiver. And especially if we're not able to run the ball effectively, we're going to really have to heavily rely on Likely and Isaiah. Isaiah Likely and Zay Flowers. I see you in the chat, the Hawk TV. Thank you for being here. I see you, Woo Pig Podcast, MDT Sports, Life Hacks. Thank you all. Jared. I see Agent E, Joey. Oh, we just got a full house tonight. Thank you all. Mitchell Estates. Thank you. Mitchell Estates. And thanks, Rave Kingdom, for welcoming everyone in. Run stretch plays with Derrick Henry. Boot off it. Yeah, you help the O-line and get the best running QB ever on the move. Makes perfect sense to me. We've got to try whatever it is whatever formula that we can use, that's what we need to try, because there's no sense in us walking away from this game without being on the winning side. On paper, if you pair up our roster with their roster, we are the better team. We really are. I'm not saying, and I'm not slighting the Cowboys. They have very good playmakers. I'm not taking anything from CeeDee Lamb. I would not, because I really wanted him to come before he got paid this offseason. I wanted him to come here to Baltimore. I knew it wasn't happening, but I could still wish. The Hawk TV says Devontae Adams needs to be the only receiver to go off. Devontae was last week. Yeah, okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah, he needs to be the only receiver. Right. We don't need to let any other wide receiver have a day. Devontae should have been it last week, and like that, the buck stops there. Ball control offense to limit CeeDee Lamb. We'll talk about how we can limit CeeDee Lamb. I'll share a few thoughts that I have. And then I have Horace Torres. He had an impact both games, in my opinion. Who are you talking about? Let me know. I'm sorry. I'm just catching up on the comments. So who had an impact both games? I think all of the playmakers that I've been speaking about, with the exception of Mark Andrews, I think all of them have had an impact. It's just now we need to have a better impact, because they had an impact, as you said. I have Horace Torres, not sure of who you are referring to, but whoever you're speaking of, they had an impact. But at the end of the day, did we win? So having an impact is good, but obviously we need more of an impact this time around. Bateman, he said Bateman had an impact, right? He also had an interception. Let me take that back and put it in proper context. He had a ball perfectly, or not, I don't know if it was perfect, but he had a ball thrown to him, a very catchable ball that was thrown to him. He caught it, slipped through his hands, and bounced off of his hands into the hands of a defender, which resulted in an interception. Those are the types of mistakes that I don't expect a wide receiver number 2 to make. I'd like them not to make those types of mistakes. Let me say it that way. Good evening, Rogue Pod. Thank you for being here. O-line, we've talked about them a lot. They have to be able to move the D linemen and not get pushed back. If that's not working, then everything else that we're discussing here today or tonight is irrelevant. And this is the position group that I think is going to take the longest to show promise and to show improvement. You can call me in disbelief or what have you, but I honestly do not believe Todd Monken right now. As you know, I'm evidence-based, and so the evidence that I've seen is that our O-line is terrible. It's very porous. It's horrible. Not taking anything away from the left side and our center. That area, that side of the ball, that side of the field, wonderful. I think they're doing a great job. Sure, Voorhees makes some mistakes here and there, but he's a rookie and he's learning, but he's still holding his own. When we talk about that right side of the ball, that is a problem. So I don't think it's going to improve. That's just me. Not this week. But we need to be able to work in spite of a subpar. I'm going to give the O-line a D. You can tell me, leave a chat real quick. I leave it in the chat. Leave a comment for me. Let me know. What grade do you give the O-line after 2 weeks? I'm going to give it a D. And the only reason it's not getting an F is, like I said, we have some bright lights. We have Ronnie Stanley, who's healthy. He was back at practice today. He was grabbing at that ankle after the last game, but he returned to practice today. Very good sign. So because of the left side in Ronnie Stanley, Voorhees, and because of our wonderful center, definitely one of the best in the league, I'm giving us a D. That's the only reason we're getting a D. But yeah, Agnes says a D+. Exactly. I see Doc Rock. Please beat the boys. He hates them. Yes. Thank you for being here, Doc. He is a Raiders fan. And I talked so much smack last week. I just knew we were going to beat the Raiders. And of course, well, let's move on. This is a new week. Don Royal, thanks for joining. He said he gives them a Z. Ooh. But Don, you have to consider that we are doing something right. And I'm going to, because prior to this year, if someone were to have told you Ronnie Stanley is going to be healthy and he's going to be in very good shape in order to, be out there at the left tackle position and defend Lamar's blind side, would you believe it? I probably wouldn't. I would have said 50-50 chance there just because we haven't seen it. So they get a D for me, but I take your point. Doc Rock says, with your receiver squad and QB, y'all should be the best deep threat in the league. O-line got to come up. Yeah. That's the problem. Max ate lunch, breakfast, dinner, brunch, supper, and everything else. It was terrible. Max Crosby had himself a day last week, but no more. We are certainly going to stop that. Like, I think it was, I can't remember who said it. I think it might have been, it could have been the Hawk TV, Devontae Adams. That was the last stop. Yeah, that was it. That was it. McCary, sit him down, because although Harbaugh doesn't generally like to start rookies, my thing is, if the player is demonstrating that they are the best in that position, it doesn't matter what their position, when they were drafted, doesn't matter what year they're in. If they're better and if they can protect my quarterback, specifically about this O-line, put him in there and take McCary, take him right on out. Micah Parsons. I'll talk about him more when we get to the defense, but this one is one that I'm sorry. He really, that is the portion of the Cowboys defense that scares me. Beyond Micah, yeah, there might be a couple of other ones, but he's really the main one for me. And right now he has 7 tackles and 1 sack. If we can find a way, this offensive line can find a way to, I don't want to say contain Micah, keep him in check, keep him away, keep him at bay, whatever you want to call it. If we can find a way to limit Micah's impact, let me say it that way, I think then we are on a good path to keeping Lamar obviously upright, but more importantly, making sure that our run game and our passing game has time to develop And that's crucial. I don't want Lamar Jackson taking any more sacks this week. I just don't. I don't. Thank you, Deshaun. And I see you, Big Reg. Good evening. Good evening. MDT Sports says they need to start Ben Cleveland, but no, we can't because we got a head coach. Exactly. Hey, Big Cuz, good to see you. Thank you for joining. Yeah, I don't think we're going to start Ben Cleveland. So I'm just trying to prepare myself because in Rave Kingdom, I don't want you yelling at the screen this Sunday afternoon if we see Ben Cleveland sitting on the bench warming it. I think, we just need to figure a way to work around that issue. Do we want Harbaugh gone? Most of us or a lot of us have said yes. Some of us said no, give him until the end of the season. Yeah, well, we'll see. I don't know. Here's another thing that we need to do. Todd Monken. If the deep ball is not working, which it should, but if it is not, we need to make sure that we have an answer for our run game. That has to be the answer. And the answer is not, we'll just run Lamar. Just, have Lamar go out there and do it. If he's not connecting with the receivers are dropping passes, whatever the case may be, just go ahead out there, Lamar, and run for your life. No, that doesn't need to be the answer. And how do we know that that's the answer? Because we see it in Lamar's stats that I showed at the beginning of this live stream. There you go. There you go. Just Tornado, thank you for joining. Better hydrate them up before sending them out. Yeah, she's out in Texas. Ooh, listen, we need to do more than hydrate them, yes, but we need to give them some energy drinks and a lot of, keep them hydrated, a lot of water and everything else just to make sure that they're ready to go because the weather's been really pleasant out this way. But as I mentioned earlier, I think the key is for Lamar to be willing to not want to rely solely or so heavily on the deep ball, the deep passes, especially if it's not working. We need to move on to something else. Be more creative, Todd Monken. That's what I want to see. Be more creative, not just, screen passes to Zay. If it's working, that's one thing. But if we're able to create offensive plays in another way, why not? Let's go ahead and do it. So, and one thing I want to do, Todd Monken, if you are watching, thank you. I want to make sure that we make the proper adjustments. If whatever your scheme, your plan, because right now I don't think we have an offensive identity, but if it's not working, be ready to change it up and go to something else to try something different. Clean up the penalties. Make sure that that's not on the table as it has been the last 2 weeks. Clean up the penalties, and we should really have the upper hand here in terms of our offense matching up against their defense, which struggled mightily last week against the Saints. So scheme the players open to Todd Monken. Lamar has to connect with his receivers. Receivers have to be in position and ready to catch the pass and not drop them. Our O-line needs to get it together and figure out a way to make sure that there's a lane or two for our running backs to run. Use Justice Hill as needed, but rely heavily on Derrick Henry. That is my formula for success on offense this upcoming week. Moving now to the defense. This is where I think we need some cleanup. Well, I think we need cleanup all the way around our team, but we really need to clean up our defense because if you would have asked me going into the season, which offense or defense, which one of them would have which one would have a rockier start, I would have said the rocky start would probably come from the offense just because I didn't know if that O-line was going to work out. I thought, okay, maybe the offense might take a week or two, maybe 3, just because we brought the addition of Derrick Henry. I still didn't know what Bateman was going to do. But I thought after that, maybe after 1 week, after 2, perhaps the offense would start to really gel, really click. And then we would have to see maybe the offense carry the defense for just a little while. Not long, but just a little while because Zach Orr is first year. Turns out both of these sides of the ball are kind of, hence the reason we're 0-2. But in terms of our defense, there have been some positives on the defense that I'm really pleased. And that is our D-line. our ability to create interior pressure, our ability to, dominate, especially Travis Jones. Very happy, glad to see it. Would like to see a little bit more from Justin Madubuike, but hats off to Travis Jones. He's been out there, and to a lesser degree, Brent Urban as well. That's going to be critical for us because we know that our secondary, our cornerbacks, our safeties have just been kind of hit or miss. And going up against CeeDee Lamb, that's a problem. That's a problem. We've got to figure a way to contain him. Do not let him get started and start to feel his, stride, and then we're stuck. I don't think, and this is no shade to Marlon Humphrey, I don't think Marlon Humphrey is at a place right now in his career where he needs to be matched up one-on-one, man-to-man with a CeeDee Lamb. I don't think that that's going to work. We're going to have to figure out who we can put in for double coverage. That's what we're going to have to do. And in terms of, our cornerbacks, the miscommunications that we've seen, we can't see that anymore. We need to see an improvement there. So I have Horace said more. Beeks had a sack called back on a phantom flag. Exactly. So he didn't have a sack in essence. So what I meant by I want to see more is, again, penalties. I said earlier, I've said this in several live streams or videos. Penalties are not fair. They're not. Are they right? Are they justifiable? That's neither here nor there. But the point is, us being the Ravens, we just need to prepare for it. We're going to get those calls, like you said, a phantom flag. We're going to get those calls made on us. That's just it. We've got to play better to overcome what we know is the inevitable. So, but when I say more from Madubuike, just take it up just a little bit. It's not that he's not playing. I didn't say that. It's not that he's not playing well. I think he is. But we're going to really need to get pressure on Dak because, as you can see with his passing yards, his stats, that's how they went. That's how they won against the Browns. They're very good in the air because you have a CeeDee Lamb on your team. Get pressure, sacks. That's what's going to be the difference maker for us. Speaking of, yes, that's right. I have I don't know if you can see it. Yes, my Odafe Owe jersey. So I'm ready to go for this upcoming game because my guy, Odafe Owe, it was said about him that he was just not ready. He wasn't going to do anything. He actually is. And I'm so excited for him. Very happy. This is just the start. He's leading our team right now in sack total. Couldn't be happier for him. We need to see him keep it up. And Kyle Van Noy, another one. Just remarkable for his determination to get back there on the field and say, hey, my team needs me. Just a week after fracturing his orbital bone. That's great. That's wonderful. Mitchell Estates says, take Malik Harrison out the game, more Adarius Washington and Wiggins, and put Kyle in the box. I think that's it. I think that's the formula, the recipe. Now, I'm not going to say take Malik out the game altogether. Take Malik out the game in terms of coverage. Do not allow, that's just a no. We don't need to see Malik Harrison in coverage. But I do think Malik Harrison can really contribute in stopping the run, especially, in terms of a third down backer. I'm thinking of Trenton Simpson. He's shown us that he can be that. He can do it. But I would also say in situations like that, that's where I think we can leave Malik Harrison in the game. Now, he doesn't need to have a whole lot of snaps, no. But I think we can leave him in the game. Everything else you said, Mitchell Estates, I pretty much agree with. We need to see more of Darius Washington. Wiggins, that's another one. Is he going to be healthy enough to play? I don't know. I think he returned to practice on a limited basis today, but I'm not very optimistic that he's going to be there on Sunday. I mean, I don't know if he's traveling with the team. What I mean is I don't know if he'll be playing on Sunday. But this is someone who I think we are really feeling the absence of Nate Wiggins in terms of our secondary right now. Because I don't want to go with the whole what coulda, woulda happened if Nate had been there last week. I don't know. So, and again, he's a rookie. We know that Harbaugh is not really keen on playing rookies all that much, but especially when our secondary was struggling as it were, I don't think we had an option at that point. But another thing we need to do to contain CeeDee Lamb, I think, is making sure that, like Mitchell said here, stack the box. And a way that we can get Dak Prescott off of his game so that CeeDee Lamb doesn't have a chance to flourish, because we know as soon as he gets going, he's going there. He's leading their team in receiving yards. So what we'll need to do is stop Dak up front and make sure that we apply a lot of pressure on him to where he's making those errant throws. He throws interceptions. He just doesn't connect with his receiver. We need to do that, because if in the hands of CD, if out there on an island with one of our cornerbacks, I don't know. I don't know if we have a cornerback who can match up with a CeeDee Lamb one-on-one. I don't think Brandon Stevens can. He might, but certainly I don't think it's Marlon Humphrey. So that's pretty much it. I think in terms of Hamilton, like I said, let's see him blitz more. I think he had a handful last game. Let's see that. Put him in the box. Let's see what he can do. And we need better communication on our defense. That's what I want to see. Clean up those little mistakes that we were making. That's what we need to, that's what we can do. Those are the things that, it's just, to me, on defense, it's the smaller things as opposed to the glaringly obvious on the offense, but it's the smaller things that I think we need to work on defense just to tighten things up just a little bit. And I'm just looking over my notes, but I think I've said everything. Roquan Smith, he should not be covering speedy wide receivers. Let me say that. If I didn't, like I said in my notes earlier, use Smith and Harrison as your run stuffing linebackers. We'll need them matched up against, Ezekiel Elliott. That's where I see them contributing. But double CD, yeah, we have to double him. He requires, anytime you have one of these elite wide receivers, we saw it last week against the Raiders. Anytime you have these elite wide receivers, you're going to have to put double coverage on them. There's just no way around it. Keys to the game: no turnovers. Play 4 meaningful quarters of football. Effective play calling. That's what I want to see from Todd Monken and from Zach Orr, especially on offense in short yard situation, and use our players to their strengths. That's what we need. There you have it. I have Horace Torres says Roquan needs to step up. He's been trashed. Wait, now, I have to put that one on the screen. Here it is here. Horace Torres, I don't think he's been trash. I'll say that he has not been what he was last year. Has there been a little bit of a drop off, or, him not being as forceful and as dominant? I'll agree to that. But I'm not going to say he's trash, because a lot of our players need to step up, and your guy Bateman needs to step up. I mean, the argument can be made that he's not doing a whole lot to help to advance this team. Don Royal says Harbaugh is going to override Monken. That's a problem. That's a problem for sure. And if that be true, it's going to continue to hold our team back. And sad to say, that's not a good look, because what I've gathered or come to learn about John Harbaugh, if you make it into his doghouse, he's not really going to put the team first, or what the team needs. He's not going to put that first. His feelings or his sentiments are going to be put before the needs of the team. And that is not going to help us in any way get out of this 0-2 deficit to which we find ourselves. So we've got some work to do. Before we go, thank you all so much for being here. Do me a favor, take 2.5, hit the like button for me. And if you are new, welcome. Please subscribe and turn on your post notifications. But before we go, if you will put your score prediction in the chat for me, let me know who you think is winning this upcoming game. And I'll start with me. I'll give you my score prediction. I'm going to go with, we're going into this game relatively healthy. We do have a couple of players that are probably not going to play. Like I mentioned, Nate Wiggins, and who knows if Adisa Isaac, he hasn't played anyway. So it's not like, okay, but anyway, and we saw Ronnie Stanley return to practice today. So that's a really good thing. I'm thinking we're relatively healthy. 28-21 Ravens. 28-21 Ravens. While you drop your scores in the chat, I'm going to take Rave Kingdom's comment. Film shows Roquan has been trying to babysit his linebackers. Hopefully Roquan can trust Simpson fully so Roquan can focus again. Good point. He has, again, I say, is he fallen off a little bit from last year? Certainly. We have with us Mr. Galloway. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much. I have Horace Torres. Drop your score prediction for me. I have Horace Torres. Yolanda, PFF graded Roquan the worst grade in both weeks on the team. Those are facts. I didn't say it wasn't. I'm not arguing the point. I'm not a Bateman fan, but fair is fair. Lamar didn't throw to him until both games, but he needs to get better. Yeah, I think there's not chemistry and connection between the two. That's just not it. That's the bottom line. So no, Roquan definitely needs to improve. I'm not saying he doesn't. Agnes, she said 17-10. And she's like, okay, Ravens. She's taking the Ravens. Deshaun, thanks for joining. He is taking the Ravens 21-23. That leaves a question. If this game comes down to a field goal, like I see here from Big Reg, if this game comes down to a field goal, Reg has already answered the question. Do you believe Justin Tucker to bring us home if this game comes down to a field goal? Obviously, Big Reg is saying no. So, Big Reg, one day you're going to say the Ravens are going to win. I don't know when it's going to be, but hopefully soon. Mitchell Estates says 34-13 Ravens. Ooh, Mitchell Estates. You think we can score 34 points behind this O-line? Okay. All right. I'll take your word. Roquan's not babysitting anyone. That's an excuse. He's simply been bad, and that's okay. I think the issue is he hasn't had much to do. We don't blitz him or send him to attack running backs or anything. That's what I'm saying. We need to have him on the running back. Like that's where his assignment needs to be. That's where he needs to be. Uncle Leo, good evening. Thank you for being here. 24-14 Ravens. Now I can see that, but I just think that with the offense hey, the Saints were able to limit them to 19 points last week, but that's assuming that our defense shows up and is able to do that. I just think that the score might just be a little bit higher than 14 for the Cowboys. I've been right so far this season. I didn't say you hadn't been right. I just want you to just, bank on us one time, just one game. I don't know when, because next week, after we play the Cowboys, the following week, we go into, we have the Bills. And then after that, we have our division rival, the Bengals. Rave Kingdom says 21-13. Ooh, Ravens. I don't know. Okay. I think it's going to be a closer game than we think. But thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining tonight. I hope you all enjoy the game. And I'm going to try my best not to get too upset should I see Ben Cleveland on the bench and Daniel Falele on the field. Try not to let it ruin my day, and just believe that they're going to be able to figure out a way to work around this issue, because clearly it is an elephant in the room. Until next time, thank you again for joining. You take care and you stay safe, and always remember, go Ravens. God bless.